What's going on, everybody? This is Nick Lawson from Squad Sports. We're really excited to be supporting the Free Agent Friday series. A lot of great talent out there. Without further ado, this is the next free agent you should be signing with your sports team.
All right, we're back for another Free Agent Fridays, and today I've got James Thomas McDaniels with me. How you doing, James?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good today. It's been a good day so far, so excited to get to learn a little bit more about you. So
Yeah, absolutely.
let's kind of start off. Walk us through where you went to school. Any degrees that you have.
Yeah, so I went to the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. I graduated there in 2018 with a bachelor's in broadcast and digital journalism, as well as a minor in sports media studies. And from an education standpoint, that's kind of the only experience I really have outside of maybe a couple of community college classes when I was still in high school. But that's kind of where I'm at now. And the experience that I had from a sports media side, it started even before high school. So by the time I got to college, it was I already become a little bit more familiar in the field. So the degree kind of just adds on to the experience that I have. But it was a remarkable university, remarkable experience, a lot of great professors, a lot of great connections I made, and some of the opportunities I had were thanks in part to me just being a Trojan. So just building up that connection network. When they say Trojan family is big and it's helpful, I've seen firsthand on multiple occasions that being true. So I'm very proud of where I came from a university standpoint, and definitely, hopefully we'll see the campus at some point in the future, because I haven't seen the campus ever since I graduated there 2 years ago.
Okay, I haven't been there, but I hear it's a great campus. So
it's small, it's very small in comparison to say a UCLA or Stanford, because it's very, very compact. But it's amazing how many things they can fit in such a compact campus. So it makes it easy from a walking and bicycling standpoint, because you can literally get from one end of the campus to the other in like 10 minutes. So it's very
much nice.
Yeah.
So I guess, did you know you wanted to get in sports then before you went to college? Or at what point did you decide, hey, that's where I want my career to go?
Yeah, I knew from a pretty young age that I wanted to work in sports media. Even in like elementary school, I would be wearing sports gear to Halloween parties and things like that. And I looked up to Grant Napier and Jerry Reynolds, who were the Kings broadcasters for a very long time together as a duo. And I mean, I was a huge Sacramento Kings fan for many years, and I still am. But I started very young. My first Kings game was like when I was like 8 years old or something, and that felt like a great birthday present, getting tickets to go see the Kings first time. And really, for a lot of years, I have watched the Kings with my grandparents, who introduced me to the Sacramento Kings and kind of the game and basketball in general. And so now that's kind of like a regular thing. Like over the last 10 years or so, there's at least a couple of times a year that I go over to my grandparents' house and we watch Kings games together, or we'll go to a Kings game or two a year, just because that's kind of like our thing. That has really built my relationship with my grandparents. And so I hold that really dear. And the other thing that got me really into it of sports was NASCAR. As you can see behind me, I got the Jeff Gordon poster there. It's actually a puzzle I put together many years ago that we framed.
Nice.
But Jeff Gordon was he was like the NASCAR driver that I really liked to follow. And my very first NASCAR race was the 2006 Sonoma race at Sonoma Raceway. And that was incredible, because Jeff Gordon ended up winning that race. And so talk about having a first great experience at a NASCAR race when your favorite driver wins it. So
can't go wrong there.
Yeah, exactly. So just kind of seeing between the Sacramento Kings and relationship, it helped me build with my grandparents, as well as seeing NASCAR and getting really involved in that, which, by the way, my aunt and uncle introduced me to that. So it really has been a family affair. And even my grandmother on my dad's side was a big fan of the San Francisco Giants and the San Francisco 49ers. So those are the four sections: NASCAR, NBA Kings, and then Giants baseball, 49ers football. Those are the teams that I follow, and it's all because of my family's influence. So even at a young age, it's like I knew I wanted to work in sports because I loved playing recreational sports. but I knew I was not athletically talented, I guess. I just enjoyed I enjoyed playing and racing for the fun of it and to try to, better myself. But I knew from like a professional competitive standpoint that I probably wasn't going to be able to go up there. So I'm like, what else could I do to be involved in sports? And the thing that really caught my attention was the media side. And that was mainly because of Grant Napier and Jerry Reynolds. The way that they talk about Kings games, even when they're talking about the opponent, they're very into what they do. They make you really understand the game if you are a newer fan, and their enthusiasm is unmatched. And so I'm thinking to myself, if I could be like those guys on TV, calling the games and helping bring the energy back to the fans and being able to be on TV and utilize the media to tell the story of sports, that's what I want to be passionate about. So even at a young age, I don't know how early it was, but probably late elementary school years, maybe even middle school years was as early as I knew I wanted to work in sports media. And I started taking, in high school, I started taking steps to try to achieve that.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, because I saw on your LinkedIn that you have, more than a handful of positions before you even went off to college, or right around that time. So high school and early college. So what were you working on then?
Yeah, so with the help of an employment program, I was able to get a couple of positions before going to college. So my first role was actually working for the local radio station here. It was short. It might have been a month, maybe 2 months, and I was helping clip their traffic reports that would go on air, and I was helping voice and write some of their promotional commercials that had to talk about with community events. It was very cool. One time I was sitting in the car out at a parking lot, and I actually heard one of the ads that I voiced come on the radio, and it was so
nice,
weird just hearing that, knowing that me as a high schooler is actually getting my voice out there on the airwaves. So I kind of did that for a month or two, and then the following summer I ended up doing a 2-month program it wasn't a program, it was kind of like an internship, I guess you could say, working for what are now called the Yuba Sutter Gold Sox. And they're the local minor league baseball team, but they're not single A, double A, triple A affiliated. They're like below that. So for my work there for the summer, I was basically a Twitter feed writer. So I would be on their Twitter account updating basically the play-by-play of each game on Twitter while the game was going on. And it really taught me that I had to be fast, because even in baseball where there's a lot of downtime, if there's like within 4 or 5 pitches, you can have a lot of action go on. And it really taught me to really be fast with the typing and just really having to keep track of the play-by-play of how sports go in order to try to keep the account updated and, as things were happening. So I did one summer of doing that. And then after that, I spent the next 2 years from basically the beginning of my junior year to the end of my senior year in high school, writing for a local community paper called the Gridley Herald. And what actually happened with that was they had a position open for a sports reporter that came up. And I'm like, well, I'm in high school, but I've worked in sports, and this is a local community paper. They're looking for somebody. Why not reach out about it and ask for it? So I did, and they said that somebody else had already gone the role, but they were really interested in having me maybe cover Live Oak, which was a market they weren't really getting a lot of attention through. So for the next 2 years, I took some evenings where I went and covered Live Oak High School with their basketball, their football, and their baseball teams. And I wrote basically just game recaps. It wasn't anything more than that. It was just recaps, but still, getting that experience of actually working on site at games, having to talk to coaches mainly after the games to get their interviews, and to try to just write a game story and just get experience with that at the local paper, and then actually seeing my work published on an actual public news form that's used here in the area. Again, it's just getting more and more experience. Obviously, I think I have a little bit more knowledge now than I did back then because of all my time at USC and what they taught there. But just getting that initial experience and taking initiative to show that you really want to try to do something and advance your career, I found even after high school and in college, there's some opportunities I was able to get simply because I reached out and was wanting to do something, and I was ambitious, and I figured, what's the worst that can happen? They can tell me no, right? But if they say yes, then, you know, why not? That's a great opportunity. Take it. So I kind of had that motivation, that drive to try to push ahead and advance even before I went to college, because I knew in high school I really wanted to work in sports media. Not exactly where, I didn't know in what part of the media field and sports I wanted to do, but I knew for sure that I wanted to work in some way in sports media. So I tried to do everything I could to do that, and I ended up with those 3 opportunities before going to college. And honestly, because of USC being it is a tough school to get into, and they have a very solid journalism program, and that's one of the reasons I chose USC, because they're one of the top-rated journalism programs out there. And so I think that my efforts to try to go out and get some of these positions and actually execute while I was in these roles, I think that was something that made me stand out in the application process, because it showed I actually had the drive to be doing this type of work even before I entered college. So it showed I was serious about working in the industry. And I think personally that helped set me apart to where I was able to get into a school like USC.
It's great. I always tell people, I look at, experience more than I look at the degree. So somebody who's internships, volunteer, whatever it is, I think, the more real world experience, the better. So what is the ideal job you're looking for now?
Yeah. So now what I'm kind of looking for is something, it's kind of twofold. I found that my 2 passions within the sports media world really have been public relations, as well as live television production of sporting events. I mean, when I was in college, and really after college as well, I've spent the last about 5 years being just like an on-the-side freelance crew member for different production companies working sports media roles that are kind of like below the line. And so most of my work has been done with the Pac-12 network, and that helped me make a decent income actually in my last 2 years of college. And the way that program worked out is I guess Pac-12 usually comes to each of the Pac-12 schools once a year or twice a year to try to recruit students, let them know, hey, we have a student program at our TV station to help out with our game broadcast when we come out and shoot the games. So I went to their session that they had, and I followed up after the end of the session to see what I could do. And so for a couple of times between my freshman year and sophomore year, I did roles, but where I really went and did a whole bunch of production roles was in my junior and senior year. It's like, if I was not doing academics, I was working some kind of sporting event or working some kind of internship. So I didn't really, I didn't have much of a social life outside of those 2 things for my last 2 years of college, but that kind of leads me into, where I want to go. And the thing with broadcasting that made me I found that I wasn't the greatest being on camera. It wasn't I didn't get as comfortable doing it as I think somebody who is in this field needs to be in order to be a very solid reporter. So it's like, okay, well, that's not working out. And also with doing news production, it was a very tight turnaround every single day. You have to edit all these videos. And while I had experience doing and editing videos, I found that I liked just helping out with getting the live stuff. And then I didn't really enjoy the editing. I kind of lost interest in it after my time at USC. So I figured sports television is the best way to go because it's live. And then you help set up, you do the production, and then you strike everything, you go home and you're done. So I like that part. And then I also like the part of public relations where you help tell the stories of athletes. So writing features on players or drivers or athletes of any sport, doing that and getting to do those special interviews with people and bringing out the backstory behind not only their accomplishments in the sport that they're in, but also all the other parts of their story that some people may not realize also comes with them. That to me, it brings out so much joy and so much feeling of accomplishment and feeling like I'm succeeding and helping tell something. And because of that, I feel public relations is very much a part of that, because public relations is all about trying to tell the positive side of how things are. And of course, when things are negative, it's about trying to crisis communications, right? So, but at the end of the day, it's not like a journalist where we mostly focus on the negatives. I really like the positive stories and getting to share those with everybody and really telling the backstory of sports on top of explaining maybe those moments that athletes have that are really grand in their careers. So I would say a perfect job, I know it's kind of been a long-winded answer, but I would say probably a perfect job would be one where I'm kind of doing half and half where I'm doing kind of public relations, writing for a team, writing features and bios on their players. And then maybe another half would be working production side stuff. So like working cameras, helping work audio, something like in a newsroom or working a remote production unit, like every time Pac-12 comes to a school or ESPN goes to a campus. So I'd say a job that offers maybe half and half would be my perfect thing. So like athletic communications in college has been kind of, to me, seems like might be a good place to go because it kind of brings all that together. But I find because have not worked specifically in a sports information department that it might be a little harder to get in there. But I'm trying my best, and I'm just trying to apply for jobs that fit any of those kind of three categories right there.
That's good. That's good. What would you say is your biggest skill?
Biggest skill. That's the thing when I go into interviews is that to me, I don't feel that I am an outright expert at any particular side of the media industry. I feel like my kind of difference maker is I can be very versatile and adaptable because I've worked in to some degree, almost every aspect of the media world that there is when it comes to actually grabbing content. So you need video production. I've done that. You need live television production. I've done that. You have social media. I've done that. You need someone to copyright all types of different internal and external copy. I've done that. Journalism, traditional journalism, PR, I've had experiences with those. So I think that my difference maker is I can be very adaptable and versatile because of all the experiences that I've done and have proved that I can succeed in, while also, making sure that I'd probably say my biggest skill probably within that, though, if I had to be specific, would probably be writing, simply because writing is kind of something that I've had to do throughout this whole process, not just in academics, but in any type of journalism job that I've had, all the public relations jobs that I had. My most recent job that I worked at full time for the last year and a half was being a copywriter for a casino resort. So in my opinion, writing's probably my strongest individual strength, but the way I like to market myself is that I can be adaptable and versatile because I've done a lot of things. I've had a taste of a lot of areas in the media field. So it's like, show me what I need to do and I'll take off from there.
What's the area you think you need to work on the most?
Definitely graphic design would be my weak point that I would need to improve on. I have a little bit of experience with Photoshop, and I think Adobe's got a program called Spark. I had to use those programs for just for some college class assignments, but in terms of actually making graphics and trying to figure out how to put things in different layers and creating graphics from scratch, I mean, that's an area that, especially I know in athletic communications where they use InDesign a lot, that I'm going to need to beef up my skills on that if I end up getting in a position in that requires that. But I think because when I've had to handle things like graphic design or even like HTML, because I had one class at USC where we actually had to write some code for HTML, and for me, foreign languages really are not very easy to come by. So HTML in a way was like another language that I had to try to learn for the purpose of the class. And I was able to get the assignment done, and our final and everything that included a template that we had to work on, but it was very, very hard. So for me personally, to really understand it. So if I go into a position, definitely graphic design and HTML, I've proven I can do a little bit of it, but it's definitely probably my weak point compared to some of the other areas that I have knowledge of in this field.
What would you, how would you define success?
I think success in many ways is making sure that you're happy what you're doing. At the end of the day, a lot of the things that I've done in my fields, they haven't paid a whole bunch. even in college. And I think probably the only thing that really paid a decent amount of money was working productions for Pac-12 and any of the other companies that I was working with, like ESPN, that would do live productions. But other than that, I mean, there was a job that I took out in Talladega, Talladega Superspeedway out in Alabama, and I worked there for 3 months. That was my first postgraduate job, and that was for 3 months. And I got paid less money in that job out there for 3 months than I did my hourly wage when I was working in high school, working for the local newspaper here in California. So
Wow.
it's a very humbling experience having that. But the reason I did that was because I knew in order to get more experience in public relations and being able to expand my profile even more, I knew I needed to get public relations on my resume. And NASCAR was one of the big sports, obviously, as I explained earlier, I'm a huge fan of and have knowledge of. And so when that opportunity came along, I'm like, it's for 3 months, I'll take it. And I lived in an apartment with one of the other coworkers that was there at Talladega. And I literally slept on an air mattress for 3 months. And this is like, I've had opportunities in New York, I've had opportunities in Arizona, and I've had these other opportunities where I actually got to sleep in a bed, and this one was like, I'm sleeping on an air mattress post-college, when all these other opportunities, I didn't have to do that. But I did it because I knew I needed to expand that skill set. And I knew in the end, I knew it was going to pay off and it was going to be worth it. And I really, truly enjoyed that job because I was getting to write a bunch of press releases. I got to do a couple of features, including a really original feature where I got to talk to two-time Talladega winner Parker Kligerman. And I got to be on a phone interview with him for about 45 minutes. And I was just asking him all these questions I had come up with through all my research about him. And the story I was able to write on him and his kind of what his background and his relation to Talladega and his success there, it was truly an original piece. And those are the things where I get to put my own quotes and the research in that I had done. And those kind of things, seeing those things published, mean more to me than pretty much any paycheck. Like, I get so much joy just telling the stories of these athletes and being able to ask them personally about it and try to create this original story with their quotes and with their information and with their original stories. So to me, success is you are in a job that, it obviously is enough to where you can live, it's a living wage, but it's a success is you are happy doing what you want to be doing. And you feel that you are contributing to something successful every time you go out and do your job. Like with the live television, I always get that joy because I know that when I go out and work on a production, even if I'm a PA or a Parab operator or a spotter or timeout coordinator, whatever I'm doing on the broadcast and then helping set up and tear down, if applicable, that I'm helping in some way bring the story of this live sporting event to all of the fans back home that are watching this on their TV. Without all of us doing it, they're not able to see this content. And so feeling like I'm successful in being part of something that really matters and helping bring joy to people, that's what I get the joy from doing live production. And then, like I was saying with the stories, just being able to tell those original stories and feeling like these athletes are giving me access to tell their stories, and then seeing it published and feeling proud of the work that I've done to bring that story to the fans is what matters.
Uh-oh. You froze up on me.
Oh, sorry about that.
I can edit out. Okay.
Oh, I can. There you go. I got you still. Yeah. So.
I don't know where we got cut off there, but
did you hear all the audio from that?
Yeah, I think it came through. I couldn't. You weren't moving, so.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So I got one more last question for you, and that is, give us a good fun fact about yourself.
A good fun fact. That's it's a tough one because I know there's a lot of fun facts out there that I could probably think of if I had some time. It's very hard to think about fun fact, but I'll share a fun fact that I think would be helpful in kind of the overall profile of myself. And that would be that I'm an Eagle Scout. And being a part of Boy Scouts for many years and getting to have kind of an introduction to a lot of different areas in the fields. I remember there was a merit badge that I did. It was railroading. It was one of the merit badges. And as part of that, I got to actually learn how to drive a real locomotive, because there's a program that's up in my old hometown, Portola, where they have a big museum and everything, and Union Pacific comes through there. And they have a program. It's one of the very few programs, if not the only program on the West Coast, that actually allows you to learn how to drive a locomotive. And so for a fee, you can go and get like an hour or 2 hours or something on one of their trains within that said price range. So getting to actually drive a locomotive and learn the different whistle signals and actually put that into practice on a real locomotive while also learning the basic controls of how to operate one was really cool. On top of, learning the badge and everything. And, I think too that from being an Eagle Scout, my project was building 4 wooden park style benches for a local school here in this hometown area. And it was because there wasn't really a lot of seating areas on the playground area for the school children to sit on. So it made sense to add the benches out there so they would have places to sit that weren't just like play equipment or the grass. And I think the interesting thing about that project was I'm someone that isn't necessarily an engineer when it comes to constructing things. Building things is not my forte, like auto mechanics and using the hands and things like that are definitely not my strong point. But for that project, I was insistent that I wanted to make something and create something. It's probably a very similar mindset to as a journalist where you're creating a story. Every story that you write as a journalist or a PR person, or even working in television production, it's a completely original thing that's never happened before and that you get to help tell. And so I'm thinking maybe that mindset probably came into that and made me kind of go out of my comfort zone and to lead a project that was building these benches. And I remember I even built a prototype bench in advance so that I would know how to teach the other scout members who actually build the rest of the benches, because I was leading the project. I did that so I could better help teach them how to build the benches. So it's all about kind of that forward thinking so that you can be proactive and help yourself any way you can. And so even with the Eagle Scout project, I think that's, even though it's a non-sports example, I think it just shows the mindset you have to have when you're working in sports. You have to think proactively. You have to know how to make sure that you're doing everything you can to improve not only yourself, but how can you improve yourself to offer help to other people that might need it, if you're ever in a position to help them. And so I think that project kind of just shows that in general.
No, that's great, man. I can hear the passion in your voice and see that you're hungry for it. So no doubt about it. You're gonna have some success. But I want to thank you for joining me. Hopefully we can help get this out there, get that passion so people can see it too, and get you back at it.
Yeah, I mean, it was it's great that you're helping do this thing, and definitely appreciate the time doing that. And what's really interesting is we kind of touched on a lot of different subjects, and the thing is with college too is that the one thing I do want to say is that in my last job as a copywriter, because I know that people might look at my resume and be like, he worked in sports media all these years. Why did he go work at a casino in his first full-time job? And I think the importance of that is that looking back at that experience, it's actually very good because it taught me to write a lot more diversified content as opposed to regular journalism where you're writing, 400, 500, maybe 1,000 or more word story. And sometimes in marketing, you have to be very quick and write things very, very short. And other times you have to write things with with kind of a structured perspective on how a company wants to do things. So to be involved in corporate communications as opposed to a regular journalist, there were some things about project management and understanding the corporate structure that I had to learn while in that job. So even though it was not involved in sports, because there was so much different writing projects involved, it really did extend and kind of maximize that skill set where I could write a whole bunch of different things. And on top of that, in addition to regular casino things internally and externally that I had to write, it was also an honor to be a part of it because there was an expansion that the casino had while I was there. They added several new dining venues, a bowling alley, virtual sports center, a new event center, and to be a part of that huge $60 million plus expansion and be at kind of the heart of the communications process of that and help create all these things that relate to the media side of publicizing that expansion and notifying guests of how of what they can get from the expansion. Being part of that is also something that I hope will set me apart going on down the road, because there's not a lot of people that are young like me that can say that they've been a part of a huge expansion like that from a communications perspective. So I wanted to add that in because I know that, you know, we didn't touch a lot on what I did in college, but I know that you've
got too much stuff in there, man.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's good. Keep it up. We'll make sure it's
Yeah.
added to the YouTube and to the page on the website, and you know, go from there.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And thanks again for doing all this. It's absolutely great that you're giving people like me that are looking for the next step in their careers a chance to kind of voice their passions for the industry, why they got in it, and what they can offer to future employers. So fantastic what you're doing. Thanks for putting this together.